good morning. So, Jon Gregson from Weightmans, or more probably accurately, John from LinkedIn. Thank you for joining me today. And when I sort of put a shout out for this sort of podcast, you very kindly stuck your hand in the air. And I was like, oh, great, John, employment lawyer, be really interesting to talk about that. And then you went, actually, no, probably we
No.
should be talking about LinkedIn. And I went, oh, yeah, that's actually really quite sensible. So, John from LinkedIn, what's it all about?
Oh, do you know what? Where did this even start? So sorry. First of all, thank you. Hello. And yeah, let's not talk about employment law because it's really boring. Well, it's not, but it is. I think for if you're not an employment lawyer. Where did this even start? I don't even know who. I know when it started. Who did it start? So this about a year ago, I think. So I've said this elsewhere, and I've probably posted about it. So I've been on LinkedIn for 15, probably 20 years, like we all have. Never used it. Um, till about 18 months ago, 2 years, actually realized you could do something with that. And I'm sure we can come and talk to all of that. And then it probably started to take off a little bit about 18 months ago. And then somebody recognized me somewhere about a year ago, went, oh, are you John from LinkedIn? And now here we are a year later, and it's just crazy. Let's be honest. You just introduced me as that. Somebody stopped me in the street in Leeds 6 months ago and asked me that. But, again, we can talk about the other side of it. I don't know. It's just become just a thing in itself. But actually, I guess it's part of the whole LinkedIn thing about what we do about the branding piece, how we built a brand for ourselves. This whole LinkedIn influencer thing that Simon Martle's put together. And I think it's about the community and what I guess we've kind of created in kind of legal LinkedIn in the last year or so, I guess, isn't it?
I think you're absolutely right. And everything you just said then is completely resonating because I've been on LinkedIn since 2009. I think for me it was somebody I read a BBC article and it said there's a thing called Facebook, but if you're on Facebook and you're a professional, you probably should have LinkedIn. And I went, oh, all right. So I got a LinkedIn account and realized it's quite a useful way of having like a Rolodex of people. And that was initially where I was going with it. I was just sort of collected names. Um, and yeah, like you, sort of about 18 months ago, maybe a little earlier, because I think it was lockdown for me. It was really starting to
Okay.
sort of going, I'm stuck in my house and I need to talk to people and I can't. So I started doing virtual coffees and I put a shout out for virtual coffees on LinkedIn and that worked quite nicely. And I was like, oh, I can be a bit more human. But sort of just quietly going about my business. And yeah, this whole thing of we've met people and we've met people virtually. And I think it started off very virtual, didn't it? And I think, yeah, you and I met 6 months ago in an event, Say Marshall, hello if you're listening, brought us in a room. And I am the one for the terrible jokes going, oh, sure, I know you from LinkedIn. And, but we'd been looking at each other's and commenting. And I was like, oh, you're interesting because, you do employment law. I don't do employment law, but I am interested in employment law
Yeah.
because it does affect me, team, management, leadership, the day job. So I was like, oh, quite interested in, other people and what they're talking about. And so I started following you and a few others. And it's been a massive shift though from online to offline community. I don't know what you think about that, apart from being
It,
spotted in the street.
it has, and so I mean, if I take it right the way back to where I started, it was very similar. So I spoke recently at I think it was Future Lawyer, and as part of that, I went back and tried to find one of my very first posts. I think I got about 9 years back in terms of scrolling, and then it died on me. But I found like a post from about 9 years ago. It had like one like, and I think it was me myself that had actually liked my own post. Um, and you saw though the state of what those things were horrific, and it was basically like, here's our latest legal update from Weightmans, and it was all that very kind of makes you want to be sick in your own mouth LinkedIn thing that a lot of people talk about. And that, there's absolutely not, don't want to do it, all those reasons why you don't want to do it. And then I looked at what was the catalyst of this for me, and I'm sure we can come and talk about that because it touches on Die Hard and Christmas films, and it's always quite a good origin story, I think, in some ways. And you look at that, and I always now look at that as almost like a marker for me. And then you look at where it's come to, and then yeah, that point I think of was it the 10th of October again? That date's kind of seared into my mind. We were at in London, and suddenly we were all together in a room, and it was like, actually, I've never really seen you in person. I've only seen your face on a screen, or I'd scroll past it, or I see your comment, and suddenly we were all brought together into one room. And I think that then has then absolutely snowballed on again to the point where there's a community, there was work opportunities, there was friendships. You know, Si kind of joked the other week, didn't he? We haven't had a LinkedIn wedding yet. I think that feels like it's the only thing that hasn't quite come out of this, in that there's everything else that's come from it suddenly is kind of mushroomed into, there is a real community. And then if you think about, it was only last week that everybody was kind of together again. The real sense of what there is now that's come from this is it's absolutely phenomenal what you've got there. And I think the biggest thing for me is, okay, there's those of us that maybe have been, the early adopters of this, those that kind of went through that wall first, 12 months ago, 18 months ago. But there's new people coming into this every week, and it feels like they've been on board from the start. And it's absolutely not a closed shop. It's not something where if I want to get involved, can I? It's the doors are completely wide open, and anybody can walk in at any point in time. And I think that's the really important thing for me. And actually, what I take away the most from it is that it's about how this grows almost every day with somebody else. We go, oh, there's an employment lawyer, or there's somebody who does insolvency work, or there's somebody who does real estate. I need them as part of this community because at some point I might need them, or I can refer work to them. And that's the real beauty of what we've got here is suddenly this legal world is just infinitely bigger with the connections that you make as part of it.
And yeah, I really like that. I really like that about it. And I think, we are by and large lawyers, and we've got some, other outliers in the legal community on this. But we're lawyers, and we're sitting behind our desks by and large, doing our busy legal work. And it can be quite lonely, and it can be quite isolating, can't it? Because you sit there go, I'm so concentrating on getting everything right, or as right as I can, that actually a bit of levity out there and going, oh, no, there's somebody out there with the same sense of humor as me. Or talk about Die Hard. Oh, I love Die Hard. I do love Die Hard, actually. And, I do want to talk about Die Hard and Ghostbusters. And it's those little sparks of humanity that you sit there and go, well, actually, we know there's loads of lawyers. And I did some stats. I did some stats in Bristol. And it's something ridiculous, like one in every six people in Bristol is a lawyer. It's like,
wow.
What? That's a lot of lawyers. And you go, well, why would I pick any of you? Do I pick it because the name on the door? Do I pick it because, I've bumped into you in the coffee shop? Or do I pick you because I go, actually, I like to cut your jib? And for me, it's that latter part. And I go, oh, I think, if I was in a bind or something happened to me, or I knew somebody was, it's about matching those people up, isn't it? Because we are not popular as a profession. Nobody loves it. Everybody should love their lawyer, but people go, oh, there's always a bit of a mystique and a mystery, and about that. And there are so many lawyers. And I said, I've just picked Bristol because that's where I'm based. And for me to be able to go, oh, well, Jon does employment law, great, but actually, more interestingly, Jon likes Die Hard.
Yeah,
I can work with that.
There is, and I think the best way to put it is we prey on the misfortune of others. That's what we do. That's how somebody put it to me. They went wrong. But no, it is absolutely that. And I'll say it first because I know I came to you. Was it before Christmas or just after? And we had something in the family here, and I needed some help with something. And the first person I came to was actually, my mum needed some help with something, and put you straight into touch with that because it was. Okay, so I could have gone to Weightmans. I could have gone internally to our, private client team on something. But actually, it was something where it wasn't so much what needed to be done. It was I needed that to be the right thing because it was something I needed to be able to trust where I could put a family member in touch with someone. So it was reaching out in that sense with it. And so, yes, it's the law, but actually it's the person that I'm putting that in with. And that's where then I talk about from my own personal experience. It's the person that I need to put in touch with that piece of it. So that for me is I wouldn't have known where else to go if it wasn't because of what we had as part of this community and knowing the person. As I said, as a lawyer, it's knowing the person that I want and I need in that instance. That for me is always the real value of what we've got from this. And I think in the second point in that for me again is that very much is almost the kind of the content pillar of how I use this. So, I said let's not talk about employment law. I don't post about employment law. Legal updates generally are quite boring, I find, on the employment side of stuff. Occasionally I'll, touch on how many kind of Freddos you can buy with an award for unfair dismissal, but it's it's quite boring. I'd much rather talk about things that relate to what it's like to be a lawyer, what it's like if you want to work with me, you want to work with the firm, what it's like to post on LinkedIn. I'll use those content pillars. And then at some point, if you do need someone, you might go, actually, I remember it's about the guy you posted about a raccoon on a train and it kind of kicked off a bit, or the guy is going to probably melt in the sun this week when it gets to like 25 degrees. It's that hook that's why you'll remember me and not the 20, 30 other employment lawyers, because there's a lot of us on LinkedIn. And then you've peeled this back a bit and you've seen the person. If that's me, that's fine. If it's not me, that's no problem. You can keep on, you'll find the next one. So I think that is exactly what this is about, in kind of showing you who it is that you will work with. Or you might even come and work with me if it's you're looking for a job as well, because we
Yeah.
recruit.
I mean, I sort of flippantly commented on your post. I went, I'd come and work with you. I know nothing about employment law, but I'd come and work with you. And you were like, well, come on over. I was like, I'd be rubbish, but I can make tea.
But that's the
But
point. It's about showing you, what this is like, because we can all read an advert, or you can all kind of see what it looks like on the website, and it's very glossy and it's very shiny. But actually, you need to know what it's like if you've got to come and sit next to me for more hours in the day than you spend elsewhere with stuff. So I'm very much about, you need to see the reality of this. If you've got an issue, you've got a problem, and you need some legal advice, what's that actually going to be like when you pick up the phone, or when you need to send me an email, and am I going to come back? What's that going to come back with? Is it going to be overly legal, technical, engaging, or actually is it going to come back with something that's supporting, that's going to show you some warmth, and actually probably the reassurance that you knew what you were doing, you just wanted somebody to go, yeah, you're right on that.
yeah, and I think for me, it's like, look, I kind of take it for granted that you guys know what you're doing, because you've got the book smarts, you've got the qualifications, you're working in an organization that we're all working in an organization that's highly regulated. I kind of expect you to know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you say about technical updates. I mean, there are some barristers out there who do some fantastic technical updates, and it's really useful. And I'm going to give a shout out to your colleague Ben Troke in
Yeah.
healthcare. Fab, love his stuff.
He writes
Really super
textbooks on this
technical.
stuff. Yeah.
Really super technical stuff. Really interesting. One of my go-to people for that aspect of what I do. And it's great. You're in the same organization. And I was like, oh, I happen to know you both through LinkedIn and for completely different reasons. And so there is space for technical, because
Yeah.
actually it's easier if somebody's picked it up and posted it on LinkedIn than me trawling through Bailey or some sort of, godforsaken newsletter that I get sent, that, something tucked away at the bottom, so there is space for that. But yeah, I want humanity. And this is a tough gig. Being a lawyer is a tough gig, and I don't care what anybody says. It's a lot of training. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get to a position of seniority. It's a lot of pointy elbows. And we're a bit of a rum lot, and I think, as somebody said to me once, well, you're all alpha personalities, and one of the worst thing about lawyers is that you don't look like you're doing anything, but you're all thinking all the time. And I went, what? And you went, no, no, seriously. You could just know your cogs are constantly turning. I went, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I might be
Yeah.
sitting there going, quite poker face. Mm-hmm. But it's that, isn't it? And you just know a room full of lawyers is just like, the potential for there being explosions is quite high.
It is, and I mean the other I quite like that actually. The other thing in this is, we don't get paid for this. This, yeah, yes, this is BD. Yes, this is, I think this is part of what being a lawyer is. If you look in 2025, it's part of how we do it, and I'm really acutely aware of that in terms of how you grow a network and how you have those things now. But this is on top of the day job, so this has to be part of how we do these things. And I've always said, and I'm quite open about it, that the moment this actually feels like work as well, and it feels like it's part of the job, I'm out of this because I've got enough. And to your point, it's hard enough. So yeah, we don't get paid for it. So it has to feel like it's none of those things. And the minute it does, I'm out of it. So that is also why I try and do it a bit differently, why we try and make it a bit more fun, and we try and make it about something that actually adds to what we all have, which is that yes, it's a starting point to raise the visibility to grow that network, but actually it's a lot more underneath all of that. When you then spend those time with those people, and you've got so much more because it's not just a place where you suddenly go, actually look at me. You can put your name on a hoodie, or you can say people know you because you've got X or Y. It's much more than that now.
Yeah, and it's opening dialogues online. As you say, in 2025, it's a completely different world. And I did a post a couple of months ago about one of my NQ job. I got a brass plaque, and I was like, this feels very Victorian. And I was very proud of my brass plaque, to be honest. But it's like I cannot imagine in 2025 sitting in an office with a brass plaque at the door with my
Yeah.
name on it, and people going, "Oh yes, I'll go in and have a chat with Heledd." It's like you're really not going to, are you? So like, why would you pick me? Why would you pick you? And I think all I've got is I'm human,
Yeah.
and if I can show that I'm human, I think that's good. That goes a long way. And I think for me, the enormous shift has been this offline, this on to offline and
Yeah.
virtual community. I mean, the fact we're sitting here having a chat, and we put the world to rights before we started this,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, do you know what? Thank God it's not just me. And I think because we are trained to internalize and think all the time, non-stop. I don't care. If I find a lawyer who can actually switch off, please tell me the secret because I
Yeah.
don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Because it's like, oh, I'm just doing the dishes. Oh, that just occurred to me because I had that time to think about something else. And it's really nice to know actually I can reach out to somebody who might just be okay to give me 5 minutes of time to talk about it. Because again, we work we work in different structures, different size organizations, whether you're multinational, whether you're a one-man band, you need somebody to bounce ideas off. And you might not have, and unfortunately, the one person you might need to technically bounce ideas off is somebody you don't get on with in work. And you go, well, where do I go? And and then I think there's possibly an element of going, well, I'm a bit, I'm a bit old and ugly enough. Like now I can go, I don't care, I've got no shame. But actually, what if you sit there and go, do you know what? I'm really a bit worried. I think I'd just like to reach out to somebody and who's got a friendly persona and what have you. And people get in touch with me and I go, yeah, no, that's not me, but I know somebody who does, or it's fine. And or thank you for getting in touch. And I've had students get in touch with me because I talk about mentoring and stuff. And I'm going, look, I can't necessarily help right now, but let me give you a bit of pointers or this. And I think just on that point, for me, it's a great leveler. It means that we've got people coming out the shadows a bit and going, oh, maybe I can talk to Jon because Jon seems like a nice bloke, and Jon might not be able to help, but even making that first leap.
Yeah, I think that's really important, and I'm always very transparent. From where we are, look, there's a much bigger world than Weightmans. So I've spent my whole career here. I've been here 20 years in September, and on the one hand, I'm vastly proud of that, and I take a lot from it. Might be just I've got no ambition and I can't do something elsewhere. Don't know. But there's a much bigger, wider world than what we've got in this one organization. Now, I've found what I need here, but there's much more else outside of that. So if it's a case that whether it's somebody else at Weightmans or somebody else elsewhere, if you need to go and get that external perspective from things, you absolutely go and do that. And I've taken that. I've been able to get where I've got in my career by both that internal counsel, but I'm definitely at a stage where I also need that external counsel as well. And I make no bones about that. And having that community to draw on, it's not just the lawyers. I'm not going to use the word non-lawyers because I know a few people that will come after me for saying that. It's
Other
the wider
professions are
legal
available.
professionals, exactly. I made a mistake. Patrick will hunt me down. It's the others that, and again, and that's just a slip of the tongue on my part with it. But having that wider network of people that I can dial into to say, look, this is where I've got. Can I lend, your counsel into these things? Absolutely invaluable. And I think if I was somebody that was at a different stage of my career, I mean, I in some ways wish I'd had that almost at 10, 15 years ago. I don't even know where I would be if I'd been able to draw into that. But to have that now, I think is absolutely, and to have that accessibility into people who are at different stages of careers, completely different career paths, different professions within the legal sector as a whole, to have access to that and to actually be able to go, well, I can connect with them or I can drop them a message and they'll have a conversation with me. That I think is just truly remarkable. And yeah, just to be able to do that is just absolutely unbelievable, I think, in a sense. With that, it kind of blows my mind a little bit if you stop and think about it. And I think what is really even more so is if you ask me to kind of go and do that, like and walk into a room with it, I'm very much that person that kind of, you know, came, I saw and I left early. I would not be the one who goes and does that. Yet here, you don't think twice. You can just do it in such a safe space. And then when you get to the room, when you see when we have those events, you know.
And it is that difference. And I haven't yet been stopped in the street because I think, as my mum says, I got a bit of a personality that people don't want to talk to me. But I have got people go, I really like what you're doing on LinkedIn. And I'm going,
Mm.
hi, I'm really sorry. A, I'm terrible with names, and B, have you ever interacted with me, or are you one of those passive people? But it's worked. It's worked, hasn't it? Because you've seen something I've posted, whether it's,
Yeah.
should I have brown sauce or red sauce on bacon
Yeah.
sandwiches, or something much more, practical about, having a rant about something that's bothered me this morning about, care fee funding.
Mm.
And people go, oh, I really like it. And it's that immediate dialogue you can have in a room and go,
Yeah.
brilliant. You know me and you know what I'm up to. And well, let's have this conversation.
Yeah.
So and again, that sense of community into that sense of community in that room as created by Cy Marshall, because we have to credit Cy Marshall from TBD
Oh, oh,
marketing
yeah.
at this point. Hi. And say, I said you have corralled, curated, and put us all in a room, and whether you go, your mavericks, your weirdos, your outliers, your whatever, he's put us in a room and we've all gone, oh, it's not just me.
Yeah.
And that's invaluable. And
It,
as somebody who's a bit like you, been using LinkedIn for a long time, as I went, it had been quite passive. It was do something, post it out there. The fact that it is now coming back and interacting, and then that's offline, you can't it's bottle of lightning, and you can't create that. And I think your point about the fact that anybody can do this, anybody can join our gang. We are not exclusive. We are not saying you're out of it. And I think it's Lisa, isn't it? It's Lisa Haywood who's just come in, stormed through, started
yeah.
her own business in Cornwall. I'm based. Great. I might have clients in Cornwall. I would absolutely 100% send stuff your
Yeah.
way. You're smart, you're funny, you're bloody brilliant in person. And what? And she said, "Oh, I've only been doing this for 6 months." It's like, what?
Yeah. And I think that is it. And it's the fact that you realize that actually we're all just the same fundamentally underneath these things. All this has done is just shone a light, or maybe not even that. It's just provided a space to be able to do that. I think the other thing which is really important is what we're here for in some of these things, because I know that you get a lot of people kind of go, well, what are you getting here from this, or what's the return on it, or that brilliant one. And I still remember that meeting I had at Weightmans, and part of the time around I went, it's not Facebook though, is it? And I think your content's just really childish, John. So I did the really childish thing was I then connected with her straight away, and then made a post about this is not Facebook.
As you do.
And then I did it really actually for a serious reason of we need to understand what this is about and what we do with this, because you know there's BD and there's different ways of doing that. So, my client base are large corporate employers. That's what my bread and butter is. I know that this is not going to be a case where I'll post on it today. I'm going to have one of them walk through the door tomorrow. If I do, there's probably red flags warning all over that. This is about, for me, developing relationships that will pay off 2, 3 years down the line with people. And I've got testament to that, and I've got evidence of that. I've got a client that does that. They walk through the door 2 years after somebody left elsewhere. That's about the relationship piece. Um, I'm very open about I connect with people today, and I will nurture that relationship for when they need me at a point in time. But this is also about, for me, it's about a way for me to go, look, I'm going to talk to you about Weightmans and the brand and what we do, and I can promote where I work. It's about being able to recruit. I've recruited people because they've seen what it's like to work with us. I mean, I did have one person, and he said to me, "You can unblur your background because I know which room of your house you're in." I was like, "Okay, you're not getting the job. That's a little bit too much." But it's a way for us to go. This is what it's like to work at Weightmans.
Yeah.
I've had the direct referrals. I've had stuff where I've been able to refer elsewhere within the firm because actually they haven't needed an employment lawyer. They've needed somebody else. So I think it's really important that this brings its own rewards in different ways, and again, that depends very much on the area that you work in with it. But it's not going to be a case that it's just an immediate return on revenue that comes into it. But again, for me, 2025, it's a key part of how we do this. And I think it touches on actually something I posted about this morning about this is very much it's the gateway into how we do a lot of things, and it's what you then build off it as well. I don't think we can undervalue that in any way, shape, or form.
No, absolutely not. Now, importantly, Die Hard is a Christmas film.
Undoubtedly.
And I'd like you to talk about your real time. Was it Christmas Eve? Just before Christmas Eve?
It was Christmas Eve, wasn't it? Yeah.
Because I was so eternally grateful as one of the last people standing
Yeah.
on Christmas Eve to sit there and hit refresh and go, oh, thank God. Thank you, Jon.
So yeah. So this is the problem I have. So I don't have a strategy or a diary of posts lined up. Occasionally I will see something and go, oh, that would be a really fun thing to do. So yeah, I was working Christmas Eve, and as most things that morning, I'm like, what am I going to post about? And it's normally 6 o'clock in the morning, I think, or something. And I thought, what would happen if I live posted effectively Die Hard for the duration of Christmas Eve? But obviously put the twist on it as it was in, Waitman's office. About 3 posts into that, I really regretted doing it, I'll be honest. So over the course of, I think it was about 7 hours, obviously whilst working, I effectively live posted the entire plot of Die Hard.
Yes, you did.
And to be fair, there was about 12 people, I think, engaged with every single post. Not the metrics I normally get. Normally I'm, in the hundreds. There was 12 people on Christmas Eve that clearly didn't like their family enough that stuck with it. I'm not doing it again.
I don't know. I expect
work.
a different film next year. I mean, I'm not going to work on Christmas Eve. Maybe that was my mistake.
Yeah,
but
it was hard work. Again, in your head, you think this is going to be a brilliant idea. It's hysterical. The first post, I don't think anybody quite got it. I think they kind of thought, oh, you've got your Christmas party tonight. Second post, I think about somebody kind of went, oh, your fire alarm's gone off on Christmas Eve. That's a little bit weird. Third post, I think the penny kind of dropped. But at that point as well, the algorithm started to really not like me at that point because you posted 3 times within like an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, it was something different. And again, for me, that's the point is, do you know what? There might have only been 12 people, but I only need one of those people to remember it next time they've got an issue. And that's the thing. But to be fair, Die Hard has been quite good to me because that's what really kind of got me going on this. If I go back 18 months, we just launched a holiday pay product. Quite boring. And we did all the usual thing where, marketing send an email around going, can everybody post about this? And it's and I was at home and we were watching Die Hard, because it is. And it broke to an advert break, and the whole kind of Coke holidays are coming advert came on. And I was like, And in my head, I kind of went, holidays are coming, holiday pay, Alan Rickman falling off a building. Could you do something here with that? And did a whole kind of, you can't say slideshow anymore, can you? Because that shows you over 40. Carousel. Then that's the right word. Slide deck.
Yeah,
Carousel of like Christmas films broken up with the holiday thing. And it went through them all and it got to the point of the holidays. And if I look at it now, it'll be horrific. It'd be really bad. But I just did it myself. I don't even think it was in Canva. I just did it in PowerPoint. It was bad. I didn't even ask anybody. Just posted it. Didn't ask marketing or anything like that. But the reaction to it, everybody was like, actually, this is different. It's clever. It's original. And I think it's when it turned that light bulb on for me to go, you can just do your own thing here. And actually, you can post stuff that engages people in a different way and people are interested and you can be yourself. Went straight past all the IP issues in it. Nobody noticed. But you can just do that. It's fine. And that's what turned the light switch on. And then it builds and it builds and it builds from it. But yeah, it literally was. It was Die Hard at Christmas, that's basically started this snowballing for me.
which is fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it is a genuine joy, sitting here in the midst of doing something quite technical and quite serious, and you want a 5 minute break, and you go, oh, do you know what? That's just really cheered me up. Thank you. And that for me is what this is all about. We've talked about how the growth and the development and all this, but those micro connections, those micro moments, you just don't know when it's going to suddenly be. Because as you say, nobody wakes up one morning and goes, do you know what I really want to do? Go and see my solicitor. But
No.
when they
But
do,
even, where you've got, the piece where you go through the alphabet and you go, well, these are the terms and these are the things that come into my head. Suddenly, actually, that's what that means. It's suddenly it hooks you into something because then actually that's the one. It's the difference, and that's then almost that USP that goes. That's why I tell her, or that's where I need something for that. That's the trick to doing this, and that's how actually you get the value, you get the return, and ultimately, though, as you say, you get the community out of this. I think that's what makes this
community
worthwhile.
is invaluable. And I think, so Jon from LinkedIn and Weightmans, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
And if anybody wants any employment advice, Jon is clearly your person. Also, go to for anything 80s
Yes.
cartoons, Die Hard, and please do. But probably also occasionally, maybe for the day job.
Occasionally, employment law if you need it.
Occasionally,
Yeah.
if I were law. Yeah.
Occasionally. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank
It's
you.
been an absolute pleasure, and thank you for coming on.